Welcome to the podcast. I'll give a official start, but Steve, seems like you've been 30 years of sales and leadership experience. Currently, VP of Sales for Solmedics for the Central Region. Uh, Earlier career in Novartis and Danca Office Imaging. Seven-time President Club winner, known as people-centric leader whose reputation is making the complex simple, right? Based out of Chicago. Steve, happy to have you on board. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself if I missed anything.
No, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation. You're correct. I've been in sales over 30 years, sales leadership, majority of that time. Started my career off in office equipment sales. It's truly where I learned how to hire, develop, and train people. Then got into the healthcare field, started off in ophthalmology, and now have spent about the last 23 years in the dental industry.
Awesome, amazing. You're in Chicago right now,
I
or
am based out of the suburbs of Chicago, correct?
amazing, amazing. How's the winter so far? It's
Actually,
life.
hasn't been that bad. I know a
Oh,
lot of
great.
people have complained about it, but I know the East Coast is getting hit with snow right now, and we're completely dry. No snow on the ground. It's cold, but no snow, so I can't complain.
Yeah, I've been in Chicago myself for a few years, so I know exactly the drill. And hearing that in the middle of February, or past February, you don't have any snow seems like it's a forgiving winter. So
Yeah, a
I'm
couple
happy
days
for
ago it
that.
was 60 degrees, so you really can't complain.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Um, when you also have residency in Naples, right? You fly
We do.
often to.
We do have some family places in Naples. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Is there any go-to places you go to in Naples when you're there?
Oh, there's a lot. There's definitely places to eat there. Time Bahamas is a good one, but then there's a lot to do there, and there's a lot of places to go. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love Naples myself. This is probably the best time to be there. Summers are a little bit stuffy, but right now it's gorgeous. So,
yeah,
for some.
summers are hot there, and it's nice to be there in the winter though when I'm in
Yeah.
Chicago. So
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Um so let's say for someone meeting you for the first time, what do you want to be known for as a leader?
I think as a leader, for me, it's realizing that you have that we mindset, and for me, it's about winning through others. It's about training, developing, and helping motivate others to be successful. A lot of it's figuring out kind of where they want to go in their career, and how do you help them get there. So find what skills that they have and they possess, and how do you enhance those, and then how do you come over some of the shortfallings. But it's a lot easier to get motivated around what gets you out of bed in the morning, more so than what keeps you up at night. So a lot of us trying to stay positive, and keep the teammates, all moving in the right direction.
Amazing. Um Steve, give us a quick timeline. Let's say, how did you end up in dental and medical sales leadership?
I would say probably the reason why I got in sales, my dad was driving around my two brothers and I, and we went to what you'd probably classify the nicest neighborhood in town around the country club. And he asked the three of us, what do you think everybody here does? Being young kids, we thought dentist, doctor, lawyer, those type positions. And I remember my dad was an entrepreneur, and he kind of looked at us and said, "No, a lot of these people are salespeople. I know a lot of them, and you'd be surprised what they sell." Sales is a great profession. You're helping people solve a problem, so that always kind of stuck with me. And when I was graduating college, I was considering coaching, and a friend of mine, kind of said, "Sales is a lot like coaching." Especially if you get into leadership of sales, it's very similar. So my timeline was, I wanted to get into healthcare sales, and found out of college that they don't really hire people in healthcare sales right out of college. So everyone talked about office equipment, life insurance, payroll services. That's where I started interviewing after I didn't get those healthcare jobs. And that's when I, worked in office equipment. I don't know if it was fortunate or unfortunate. I planned on being there for about 6 months, like everybody does. But I worked my way up to a zone manager, and that's where I really learned. But the positive was learning how to, hire, develop, and train people. After 5 years, you kind of realize that everybody going there wants to be there for 6 months to a year and move on to another job. And that's when I went back to my original concept of getting back into healthcare sales. Got into ophthalmology, did a little bit of everything there, from a pharma rep to an OR rep to managed care to leadership. And then just so happened, we were kind of building out the DSO space and that platform of ophthalmologists not wanting to move into the hospital setting and keep their own surgical centers. So it's kind of like a DSO, like a support organization. And that's when I got recruited over to J&J to help build out the DSO space for Johnson and Johnson. Did that for a couple of years, got tapped on the shoulder, and then moved into kind of senior leadership, running teams, building and inspiring teams. And then just so happened, my original CEO from my J&J days reached out to me, and he had just become the CEO of a company called Solmedics. And he was buying four other companies and merging five companies into one, and they had no presence in the dental support organization space, and asked me if I wanted to join the journey all over again. So I did that here for a couple of years and built out that space, and now got tapped on the shoulder again to lead sales teams on both the private practice and the DSO side of things. So we have inside teams, we have outside teams calling on private practice, we have enterprise teams calling in the DSO space, and then we have surgical teams calling on the specialist. So that's currently what I'm doing, is leading and managing those teams in the central U.S. and Canada.
Amazing. Sounds like a quite inspiring career and journey. Sometimes you're just in the right place, right time, and if you put the right effort, you'll get there. You've led across multiple verticals: dental devices, medical devices, specialty pharma. What patterns stayed the same no matter the industry?
Well, I think once you come down with the concept of no one likes to be sold, but they love to buy, that's where you make yourself unique in understanding that sales can have a bad connotation to it. But if you go about it the right way, sales is a great career, and it's a great place to be. And like I said, people love to buy. They just don't want to be sold.
Yeah.
So, I think if you can really figure out what gets them out of bed in the morning, and what drives those customers, patients, whatever it is, whatever field you're in, but also if you can really figure out what are the pain points they have, and instead of telling you everything about the bells and whistles of whatever you're selling, if you can really find out what are the problems that they solve, and then find a way to fit whatever you're doing in to help solve those problems, that's when you become a partner versus a vendor. And that's where you can sell in multiple verticals, because you understand the process of helping people, versus just helping yourself.
Yeah. Powerful. I love that. Everybody is a buyer, but nobody likes to be sold on. So that's really great. Um, you say your reputation is making the complex simple. What's your method for doing that?
I think a lot of it is, you have to have an understanding of what you're doing, but you also have to have an understanding of the business platform you play in. So you have to understand what your organization does, how you can help people, but then you also have to really understand taking off your shoes and putting on your customers' shoes, of how they do their job, where the pain points are, and how you can help them. So for me, a lot of it's just breaking that down, for the teams, of this is the vertical we play in, this is how we help customers, and then it's really finding out who are your customers, and not everybody should or will be your customer. There's a lot of customers you like to pass off to your competition. So a lot of it is figuring out where's your sweet spot, who's your ICP, how do you build a plan and target around that. But then it always comes back to, can you help them? If you can't help them, let them know somebody else could probably help them better. And like I said, then you become a partner versus a vendor, because if you sell them something they don't need, they're going to figure that out pretty fast, and you're never going to get an opportunity to sell them again.
Yeah, amazing. Um, so let's say talking about managing teams and developing teams. Let's say, what do top performers do differently that most leaders don't notice until it's too late?
There's two ways to look at that. I think top performers are top performers. You have your Michael Jordans of the world. They do what they do. A lot of times they're more lone wolves. But where you really truly see teams themselves be successful is usually their B players are better than the other team's B players. The A players are going to do what they do. You look at, like, say, Michael Jordan's championships in Chicago. Some a lot of those winning shots were not Michael. Some were, but Steve Kerr, John Paxson, there's a lot of people that did that. The B players outperformed the other team. So I think a lot of it is finding the people that can sell, but also do they have the right mindset? Do they have the right work ethic? You can teach product knowledge, you can teach industry knowledge, those type things. You can't teach grit, you can't teach work ethic. And I think where a lot of leaders miss is the number one responsibility of a leader is building that team. And then how do you make that team cohesive and high performing? And a lot of it is finding the right people. I think we all got a MBA class on that this year in college football with Coach Sig at Indiana. He's very good at finding the players that no one else noticed, but they want to work together as a team. When you watch most of those guys talk after any type of game they won, it was always they did it for their brothers. They were so happy to see the defense outperform, is what the offense would say. The defense would say it was great to see the offense succeed. That's when you build a cohesive, high performing team, when they're cheering on their peers more than they're cheering on themselves. And that's where I think, high performing teams come from that, because you find the people that truly want to work together. And one of the things I've always done is, in sales, the panacea is President's Club, Directors Club, whatever people want to call it. When you really break that down, for most teams, every single person on the team could win that award, and you're not really in competition with yourself. You are in competition for the numbers you rank, but if everyone pulls together, everyone works together. I've had times in those Presidents Club where I was leading teams where we almost had everybody in the team win. Else, the award ceremony likes you, but if you can instill that belief in your team that they're not in competition with each other, the more they help each other, we can all get there together, and it's one heck of a party. And then it just turns into who else is coming with us.
Hmm. Amazing. Um, let's talk a little bit about Solmetics, maybe. In plain language, what problem does Solmetics solve, and why does it matter more than most people realize?
We play in the dental water space. So we are the only comprehensive end-to-end water solution organization. So that's where we took 5 organizations and merged them into one. So we handle water coming into a dental practice, through a dental practice, through the patient, and then exiting the dental practice. So we not only protect the teams that work there, we protect the patients, we protect the environment. Probably water is the dirty secret in dentistry. You need water for every single procedure in dentistry, but only about 70% of offices test, shock, and treat their water. So we spend a lot of time educating them of what are the ramifications of that. You're building a business. You don't want to have an outbreak. If you have an outbreak, it's not going to be good for, one, the patient reputation of that practice, but also there's financial legality risk in that as well. But I think a lot of it comes down to the end of the day, it's doing the right thing. So it's not, like I said, not just protecting the patients and the practice, it's also protecting the environment from things like amalgam. Dentistry is the number one pollutant of amalgam in the world. Well, how do we stop that from happening? So that's where we spend a lot of time building out custom protocols for dental practices and dental groups of what is the best way to manage water in, through, and out of their practice.
Great. As a VP of sales, what does winning look like in a year? Let's say, is it growth? Is it retention? Customer trust? Team performance? How do you evaluate success as the VP of sales?
I think for true success, it's all that. And that's why I always like to ask people, what is your true personal definition of success? And for me, it is all that. I look at my teams as the number one customer I interact with. It's not the customers we deal with. If I take care of the team and support them and make them feel valued and trusted, they'll take care of the customers, which take care of the communities we serve. So for me, it does come down to, what is the performance? Are we growing the business? Do we have great retention? Are people happy? There's more to life than just work. So they also have to be happy. We spend a lot more time at work. So a lot of it is building that cohesive, high performing team, but making sure, people want to be there. It's always doing check-ins. And I have this conversation with my teams during one-on-ones all the time. Are you still happy doing what you're doing? If you're not, we can help you find something else. There's more to life. You got to be happy. To me, it's not about the date on the front and the back of the tombstone. It's about the dash. It's about the journey that we got there for. There's a gentleman by the name of Cameron Harold. He runs the COO network, and it's a little morbid, but I think he says it best. None of us are getting out alive. At the end of the day, we're all walking each other home, so why not have a good time? And I think if you can really take care of the people that are in your charge, the numbers will kind of work themselves out.
Yeah, seems like you touch a lot on culture.
Mhm.
How much time, does you and leadership, right? People in your role, uh, invest or put an effort or focus on being able to complete or build that culture.
Yeah, I believe culture starts at the top, but it also comes from the bottom up, and you got to meet in the middle. So I think culture is everything and it's everywhere. So you have to kind of do what you say, and you have to be there to protect the teams and the people that are in your service. So for me, it's a constant thought process of how do we improve people's lives, how do we give them enjoyment at work, and how do you have some fun while you're going through that process. But I think to be successful, you have to be that way. If not, you're going to have constant churn, which is not good for the business. It's not good for the customers. It's not good for anyone.
Right. Well, I must agree with you 100%. I think that I follow. I don't know if you know Alex Karp. He's
Yeah.
a CEO of Palantir, and he says an organization is not ruled by a single leader, but by its culture. So, I mean, I think that investing in that, it's probably what's going to allow the organization for longevity and long runs. So, um, let's maybe talk about a little bit about AI. First, how are you personally using AI, if at
Yeah,
all? Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, it's a lot of Chat GPT and those type things. Using it for that. I'm not of the belief that AI is going to take over the world. I think people using AI is going to take over the world. So you have to embrace it more. You have to understand it. It's touching every industry of our lives. It touches your personal life. It makes things easier. I even see younger nieces and nephews that use it to, as a calculator, as everything. I mean, it does things fast for them, kind of the whole Einstein philosophy of why memorize things when it's at your fingertips. So you're kind of seeing it enter the personal life things. We're seeing it enter the workspace. It's not there yet in dentistry, but it's coming. There's diagnostic tools, and I know everyone's afraid that it's just going to diagnose more, which is going to cause that. But it doesn't have that mindset to do that. It's catching stuff earlier than the human eye or the human brain's going to catch. So that's a great thing for patients because the more preventative you can be, the better off you're going to be. But then it's even breaking into how they schedule patients, how they answer phones, how they do RCM billing. It's touching every aspect. Probably the only thing that's missing right now in the dental space I can speak to is none of those devices talk to each other. Whoever can figure out how to get all that to talk to each other, that's going to be your next billionaire. But I just think it's a cool concept of we now are at the day and age where you could probably one of the next billionaires is probably going to be a solo person in a company. It might just be them using AI, which is mind blowing when you really think about that. Another case is for startup companies. I don't know if you are familiar with the book The One Thing, but it's Gary Keller and Jay Papasan that wrote that, and another gentleman worked for them as like their lead trainer and stuff, and ran their podcast by the name of Jeff Woods. Well, he broke away now and started his own company, and what he works with is startup founders that can't afford to have a board of directors. Well, through AI, you can set up a whole platform where, maybe Steve Jobs is your creative director, Warren Buffett's your financial director, and he builds out based on what industry they're in, who would be the thought leaders. There's so much content out there. They would never be able to afford that type of board of directors. But that's where you could see a single individual probably could become a billionaire running a business using AI, which is fascinating to think about. And it's been around for quite some time. It's in the forefront now. Like we talked about in the very beginning, Chat GPT, people are using that now on a daily basis. And I think everybody's becoming more comfortable with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I must agree, and I think that the exponential curve and people understanding how to use these large language models. And this is kind of basic, right? I think we're getting now into the agents, and it's we're growing into understanding this whole other world, right? It's like, at some point, like you said, I think we're going to have that first $1 billion company that is going to be a solo person company very soon. I think in the last 2 weeks we've seen more advancements, or at least the news is out, right? That there's more evolution than what we think, and once we figure out the compute and the energy aspects of AI, I think it's going to be much more powerful.
Yeah,
Today,
I definitely think the positive outweighs the negative. And, you know, we look back a few years ago and everyone complained that their TV, their computer, you bought it and a year later it's obsolete. Well,
yeah,
in the AI world, what you did yesterday is obsolete.
correct. Exactly. There's
Yeah,
a very common a phrase people are saying, this is the worst it's ever going to be. So tomorrow we're going to wake up and we're going to find a new tool or new ways to actually get more out of this technology.
absolutely.
Um, do you encourage your sales team to utilize AI? Are they using it? You know, how is AI helping in the sales process right now?
Yeah, I definitely think it helps in the sales process. I mean, it can tell you like where people are headquartered, where they live. I mean, there's so much at your fingertips that you'd be crazy not to use it. You know, there still are platforms we subscribe to and use, and there's LinkedIn and there's things like that. You know, but AI is playing a big part of that. I don't think there's one person that I interact on the sales teams that don't use it in some form or fashion. I think everybody is realizing that it's here to stay. It's the wave of the future, and you're either getting on the boat or you're getting off. But like I said, I don't think it's there to take over jobs like people think. It's really the people that use it are going to be doing that. And like you talked about, I mean, even some of the chat bots that answer phones and all that. You know, what I heard yesterday, what I heard 2 weeks ago, what I heard 3 weeks ago, 2 years ago,
Yeah,
it's amazing. I mean,
yeah,
it's getting to the point where you can't tell. And obviously, you could throw a couple questions in there, but that's going to change in the next year. I don't think that's going to be the case. And it's a lot more lifelike. And, you know, I even know of a dentist that runs a podcast, and he's taken most of that stuff and dumped it into some type of format where he literally could interview himself. It's going to be his voice talking to him, his voice talking back, and you could just do a whole podcast because he has so much content out there, which is just mind blowing to think about.
yeah. Yeah, it is. And you're right about that. I think the other day I called, I forget exactly what I called, but it took, I understood it was AI, but I said, wow, how many people actually can't even detect this, right? Because it was so seamless, incredible. Um, do you see uh, let's say any time wasters during the sales process that can AI can still maybe leverage some of those solutions? Can you think of on the top of your head? Um,
Well, definitely. I mean, you know, there's a lot of ways you could use AI in the sales process. And there's also coaching ways to use AI. You can prep your calls of, you know, telling the chatbot, this is a customer I'm going to be talking to. This is their pain point. This is their biggest objection and all that. And you can role play and practice that. You could also have it listen in on the calls, which I think most of the time we get on some type of Zoom or Teams call. And sometimes there's more AI readers than there are people on the calls. But, you know, they can also walk through after and coach like, you know, you could have said something here, you could have said something there. I've been on a couple of podcasts where, you know, they've reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to come back? Because the AI chatbot told me I should have tapped in here and gone deeper here. I should have asked this instead of that. So I think that's coming into the sales world. But I even think, you know, I think younger sales teams are using them too to help coach them while they're on the call in a live format. You know, before a lot of the call centers used to have like someone listening into calls and whispering stuff in the ear. That's all done by chatbots now. And eventually that might just be chatbots taking it over
yeah,
and having those conversations. You know, I think there still will always be some type of human component to AI, but it is amazing where it's going. And I think a lot of it is you just kind of have that open mind. I know everyone's afraid of Terminator, but I think you have to have that open mind and realize that there's probably a lot more good than bad And I think it's like anything in life. It's not really what happens to you. It's kind of your response or how you look at it. So I think some people are just skeptical in nature, or live under scarcity versus abundance, versus realizing that we're all in this together, and it's moving in the right direction. It's you're always fear of good versus evil.
Yeah. When you look at how this technology is evolving, uh, where do you think AI is going to create the biggest impact in your industry in the next 24 months?
Well,
Or,
I think like I said, I think people are worried about it taking jobs. We've all have seen this before. There are books out there that say that we're gonna have to change the way we sell. There was a book in 1910 written basically saying we're gonna have to change the way we sell because the consumer is more educated, and that was because the Sears catalog came out. So I think this stuff is just repetitive. It keeps happening. Like they're more educated, they're more this, they're more that. I definitely see where AI is going to help with pretty much everything we do, from driving to other things, and a lot of it's just having that open mind, and being free to kind of accept that, of where it can help, and where it can scale businesses. And I think a lot of it is if you look at it the right way. Like for us, I know a lot of the people that work, on the front of the house in a dental practice are afraid they're going to lose their job, but it's not really that. Dentistry is not really dentistry. It's a people business. It's about the experience you gave them. The average patient has no idea if they received a good crown, a bad crown, a good cleaning, a bad cleaning, but they know how you made them feel.
right.
And if you can relieve the phone from buzzing all the time, checking benefits, getting a payroll to that person, now the person at the front of the house can actually just look eye to eye with that patient, welcome them, talk to them, do all that, and everything around them's happening as if it always happened. It's just before they had the phone in one hand, they were trying to look on a computer at insurance, they were trying to welcome somebody in and do all that at once, which is not a great experience. We've all been there. We've all been to numerous things, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a dental practice, a medical practice, you name it, where that's been going on. And then we've also been on the flip side where all their attention is towards you. And now the experience is incredible from that.
Yeah, I must agree with you 100%. And I think that that's part of the solutions that AI, immediate solutions that AI can bring. And it will, let's say, support the hospitality aspect within any service business, right? And like you said,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, people oftentimes don't remember really what they bought or how they bought or whatever, but they will remember how you made them feel. That's really what's going to bring them back right back. Um,
Hmm.
let's say, do you see a pattern in maybe adoption that some organizations are getting wrong? Um, do you can you identify maybe a common misconceptions that maybe some organizations, and I know we're probably turning the page on that, everybody's understanding and realizing that AI, it's here to stay, uh, but do you see that something in particular that people are still misconcepting, let's say a common misconception about AI?
Well, I mean, I think for me, like I said, we have two kind of spaces in dentistry. We have the dental support organizations, we have the private practice. The dental support organizations, it's probably 50% of them are using AI in some form. I don't think they're all embracing it the way it could. And I think a lot of them are purchasing a lot of different platforms in a lot of different areas, not realizing that certain tools are overlapping and doing the
Yeah,
same thing.
exactly.
And on the private practice side, the adoption is a lot less, maybe 20%. And I think they don't think they can afford it. They don't see where they'll get the ROI out of it. So I think there's still, the early adopters are there, kind of going to that next wave. It's been slow. And I think it comes from, that's for big corporations. That's not for the solo practitioner. But there are ways to go about it and ways to look at it and ways to do it. But like I said, whoever can figure out how to get all this stuff to talk to each other,
Yeah.
that's going to be your next billionaire. And it might be a solo he or she that running that company that figure that out. But that person's gonna be incredible because right now that's kind of the issue. Like the average practice probably has about 15 different AI platforms that they're using, and if they had one, they'd probably be a lot happier. But they don't, which means they're going to a lot of different tools, trying to look at a lot of different portals, spreadsheets. How do you get that into one? That's where I think people are really hoping for.
Yeah. Yeah, I must agree with you 100%. I think that we're going to go in through a phase where, you're going to have specialists that are going to come in and organize the data, because at the end of the day, the AI agent is going to be able to carry all that. It's just how do you structure, how do you organize, how do you connect to those data points to be able to get the results that you want. But I think that you hit it in the bullseye for sure. Just maybe a question uh, off AI, but what's one leadership principle you try to operate by when things are moving fast?
When things are moving fast, you got to slow down to speed up. You really got to look at kind of where we're at, what we're doing, and my biggest philosophy probably is the goal doesn't change, but we have to be flexible in the execution. So if we have the goal and the mission and the vision of where we're going, we might run into a roadblock. That just means we got to pivot and go a different way. But a lot of people like to, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we're going. It's not working anymore. We got to figure it out. You got to be flexible in that execution. And I think the more people are open to that, I mean, we've all seen it. This is the way we've always done it. It's a killer of every business. You can look at, there's tons you can look at. You can look at Blockbuster. You can look at Kodak. There's just way too many examples of a lot of those scenarios. Kodak invented digital film, but they just never executed on it because they were too afraid what it would do to their business. Well,
Right.
somebody else did, and they're out of business. Blockbuster thought people wanted to come to the store. Look at Sears. Sears had the concept of online. They had a catalog. They could have just moved that to online, and they probably have been the first Amazon. But they chose not to and thought people wanted to come to their store to get service. We definitely have seen that change. So I think a lot of it's just thinking through what is our goal, how do we get there, and you just got to be flexible in the execution. There's more than one way to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. 100%. Um, Steve, this has been an amazing conversation. I really, really appreciate you jumping in and providing us with incredible feedback. It seems like your success, speaks very naturally, and your understanding of this technology is really, definitely shaping your team and how you manage and develop people. Uh, Quick advice to those entering into the sales world that maybe you wish you knew before you entered into this journey?
I think it's just believe in yourself. You got to have massive belief in yourself. You don't want to be arrogant, but you want to be humble and believe in yourself. And probably, I think in this day and age, it's no longer who you know, it's who knows you. So build a personal brand. Get your name, your face, your image out there. Build a personal brand. It makes life a lot easier. If they know and have seen you around, they already walk in with trust. It just nothing gets easy, but it gets easier. So I think a lot of it, and then it's who you surround yourself with. Probably the biggest success factor you're ever going to be is who you decide to partner with in business, but more importantly, who do you decide to partner with in life? That's probably going to determine who you are and then where you spend your time. We all have an average of 5. We all need to get into better rooms. If you're the smartest person in the room, get out of that room as fast as you can and find another room where you're not the smartest person. That's how you learn and grow. At the end of the day, we're all like trees. We're either growing or dying. So, anything you can get out of an organization is icing on the cake, but you have to take your own personal development into your own hands. And like I said, learn the industry you play in, learn the organization you're at, learn your competitors, learn as much as you can. But also, it's not just whatever you play in that platform. So it's not just like the products we play in dentistry. You need to understand dentistry as a whole. And there is so much at your fingertips that you can do that now with AI, with podcasts, with YouTube. You can do a lot of stuff. So the excuse is no longer there that nobody trained me, no one developed me. Develop yourself. 80% of your jobs who you report to. So find a leader you believe in and an organization you believe in, and life will be great.
Amazing advice. Amazing advice. Steve, for those that want to know a little bit more about Solmedics and the solutions that you offer, where can they reach out or where can they find you?
I'm very accessible on LinkedIn. I post every day. That's the other thing I encourage people to do: be active, be out there. If not, my email address is scraig@solmedics.com. So I'm pretty accessible to find. So reach out. Love to have a conversation.
Amazing, Steve. Well, listen, it was a true pleasure. I really appreciate you jumping on board. Thank you so much for the incredible wisdom that you offered. And hopefully we'll get to connect again in the future. But thank you again for joining the show. Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm open to a part two anytime. I just appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation and wish you the best.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank
Awesome.
you.